Hello, YouTube. This is Renetta. I'm back for another session of Renetta's World. Okay, so in today's broadcast, we're going to talk about fireproofing your relationships in the 21st century. Okay, so, I was looking at different types of relationships and how relationships can sour and how relationships can go bad and they can disintegrate to the point that there's literally no way for reconciliation. And one of the interesting ways that I noticed where relationships suffer is in terms of secrets. Ooh. Now, everyone has secrets and everyone shares their secrets or some of their secrets. And not just secrets, but we're not just discussing our relationships and secrets, but also relationships and goals and plans and, in the 21st century. And relationships in the 21st century is not the same type of relationships that your parents grew up with, your grandparents grew up with. Your grandparents and your parents grew up in a society where a person's word was their bond. When they gave you their word was like a literal, written, signed, agreed upon contract. And people honored their word for the most part. The average everyday person, honored their word for the most part. And it's interesting because even enshrined in law also recognizes verbal contracts, right? Even though I wouldn't advise people to use verbal contracts if they're litigating, get it written, right? So I noticed that a lot of relationships suffer because secrets aren't kept. And when we become friends with people, most people don't take the time to anticipate that their existing relationship may one day go sour. And if the person with whom you have this relationship, if the person with whom you have this relationship, the relationship goes sour, what position are you left in if that person becomes a vindictive, disloyal, untrustworthy person, and they have all these secrets or ideas or plans that you confided in them with? So we're looking at relationships in the 21st century and how relationships in the 21st century relationships are different, from relationships from your grandparents and your parents. So we look at things, the first thing we observed is that in today's society, a person's word is not necessarily their bond. If a person tells you they're going to do something, in today's society, if they tell you they're going to do something and they actually follow through, that person is a trustworthy person. But today's society is a little bit different because we're a more consumerist society, and today's society is a materialistic society, and a lot of people would not necessarily put your interest above theirs. Okay, so how can we fireproof our relationships, friendships, marriages, etc. in the 21st century? Now, the first point I would like to emphasize is relationship boundaries. I can't stress this enough. Every relationship needs to have defined boundaries. You need to be able to look at every single relationship in your life and categorize every single relationship in your life. They have to be categorized. You have to put people, this may sound a little bit crude, it may sound a little bit crass, insensitive, but for safety measures, you have to be able to put your relationships into categories. And by putting them into categories, you're setting realistic boundaries. So, for example, you're going to be able to classify, for example, your friendships. You're going to be able to detail, okay, this person is a friend, this person is an acquaintance, this person is a friend and a confidant, this person is a friend, but a friend on a social level, meaning I can go out with this person, I can have fun with this person, but I wouldn't necessarily divulge all my personal information or what I plan to do with this particular person. So boundaries in relationships are extremely important, and one of the ways in which we can set boundaries in relationships is by categorizing our friends and categorizing our relationships. Not only that, we also have to put limitations on our friendships, because one of the things that can strain relationships is the give and take is not 50-50. For example, if it's a give and take relationship and you're giving 70 and the person is giving 30, that relationship is not going to last, because eventually what you're going to have is someone is going to end up being disgruntled. And some may say, okay, well, I didn't ask the person to do that, but I always say, if you didn't ask for it, why are you receiving it? If you didn't ask for it, why are you receiving it? You can always say no. So don't sit there and say, okay, well, I didn't ask for it, but I took it when they gave it. You can always say no, right? So the first part in fireproofing our relationships in the 21st century is boundaries. The second part of fireproofing relationships in the 21st century is TMI, too much information. And the problem with this is that in relationships, we tend to share everything with everyone we believe is close to us. And that may not necessarily be a good thing. That may not necessarily work in your favor when too many people know too much about you. And how can that be detrimental? That can be detrimental because people change over time. It's human nature for people to change. It's also societal in that relationships are not lasting as long as they used to. And relationships don't have the same value as they used to. For example, in your grandparents' generation, they got married, they stayed married, they died married. In your parents' generation and in our generation, it's like marriages are a little bit different. And then the generation after me, I think that's the millennial generation. And then the Z generation, that's after the millennial generation, they're not even considering marriage. Relationships change over time. So one of the factors that can hinder relationships is too much information, or TMIs. Okay. Now, the beauty of relationships is confidence, being able to trust, the environment of trust in a relationship, and the ability to confide in someone, not just trust them, but also to confide in them when you need them. And in the 21st century, where relationships are not as dependable as, let's say, a grandparents' generation, having that level of trust and that protective measure of confidence is not there. Let's look at the relationship, for example, like what's going on politically now. There's a lot of leaks that are going on politically, right? And getting to the sources of those leaks are pretty, it's a lot of work, right? So being able to have confidence in who you're speaking to, and having a level of trust, and having that person trust you and you trust them, these are issues that are tantamount in relationships. And these are virtues in the 21st century that's severely lacking, because we are a materialistic society, and not just a materialistic society, but we also are a me society, but not me as in self-development, but me as in I want everything for myself. I want to be the center of attention, and I'm the center of the universe, and no one's better than me, right? So how can having friends, when you have friends that know TMI, how can this be detrimental to your relationships? Okay, because we're dealing with relationships, friendships, and so on and so forth in the 21st century. How can your friends knowing TMI be detrimental to your relationships? I can list a number of ways in which having friends knowing TMI as being detrimental to their relationships in that people simply change. And not only that, you cannot determine if in the future this person having all this information about you, how can they use this information down the road to destroy you? And these are issues that a lot of people have come to me about and have shared with me and confided in me. And it got me thinking, like, how can we redefine relationships in the 21st century in a way that is protective of people and respects boundaries and maintain and establishes, basic virtues, right? Okay, so the first thing I came up with is you never share confidential information with anyone who will not share confidential information with you. If a person is not going to disclose to you sensitive information about themselves, you should not disclose to that person sensitive information about yourself. Why is that? Because you're disclosing, let's say it's just a regular friendship, and you are divulging sensitive information that could possibly cause you public harm, public disgrace, shame, humiliation, etc. You're divulging, intimate details about yourself to someone, and that person is not relating to you sensitive information about yourself. What can that person use that information in the future to do? So, rule number one, you never divulge sensitive information about yourself if the person is unwilling to divulge sensitive information about themselves. Okay, so this is one of the protocols that I call friendship insurance policies. So this is what I call a friendship insurance policy. If I'm going to confide sensitive information in you, just as a friend, you have to confide sensitive information with me, sorry. And if you are unwilling, sorry, and if you are unwilling to divulge sensitive information about yourself, you are not the person I'm going to divulge sensitive information to. It's as simple as that, right? So you want to share as they share, and they share as you share. And if they are unwilling, so will you, right? So this is one of the friendship insurance policies. Okay, now number two is what I call a friendship non-disclosure agreement. If you know that you have sensitive information about yourself and you are going to confide in someone who is not a licensed professional, you want to have a written, signed friendship non-disclosure agreement. A written and signed friendship non-disclosure agreement. And some would say, but this is taking things a little bit too far. And, this just kills the beauty of having a friendship. But think about all the people who's been affected because they did not foresee that their relationships, their friendships, their intimate relationships, their familial relationships, their business relationships, etc. They did not foresee that their relationships were going to sour, and they did not foresee that the person in whom they confided turned out to be their worst enemy. And simply having a friendship non-disclosure agreement could have made the difference between a person's reputation being ruined and your personal information being kept. So you may want to consider, and this is not the relationships, again, this is not about relationships that your grandparents had where a person's word was their bond. This is not that generation. This is a generation that is super competitive or hyper competitive, and it's a materialistic generation. And it's also a very self-centered generation, but not self-centered in the way as self-construction, but in terms of me first and me only. This is the generation in which we live, right? So One of the solutions is a friendship non-disclosure agreement. This excludes the NSA, who doesn't sign non-disclosure agreements and minds everybody's business. Okay, so a friendship non-disclosure agreement, and once that is signed, you're free to divulge with this person and this person alone certain sensitive information. And if this information gets out, then this person would be sued. It's as simple as that. So a friendship non-disclosure agreement for your friendships. And that is only in the case where you divulge any type of information that could be detrimental to you. Okay, and that includes, if let's say that includes that you're working on a business proposal and you want to confide in your friend, and you want to get, you want to confide in your friend, you want to get, feedback from your friend, you may even consider having your friend sign a friendship non-disclosure or a non-competitive agreement. Because again, we live in a society where people change, attitudes change, and we live in a society that is not tolerant and not very forgiving and is very vindictive. This is just the way things are. So, in order to protect ourselves, we have to put certain things in place. So, a friendship non disclosure agreement when you're dealing with friends and confiding in them with your sensitive information. The second solution is when it comes to your sensitive information, hire a professional. Hire a professional by law will have to keep your information secret. Your information a secret unless it's a crime. So your second solution in dealing with relationships in the 21st century is hiring a professional. And that professional, you can have that person as your confidant. The third thing is having a professional confidant. And these people exist, where you tell, a professional confidant, you pay them, and this person is paid to keep your secrets. Okay. And of course, you will enter into a contract with them, and that contract would be signed, and that contract would be notarized, etc., etc., etc. And you would pay this person to keep your secrets. And I'll tell you something about myself. When it comes to people's personal information, I personally am a secret keeper. Okay. I do not like divulging people's personal information. I don't. Okay, that's just the way I am. I would keep a secret. I would keep it. I would keep it. I would keep it. If someone confides something in me, as long as it's not, like illegal or something like that, where I'm just like, I keep confidence. That's just the way I am. However, in my short tenure alive, what I've observed is that some people, not all, some people will respect the fact that a person is a confidence keeper. And some people would use it as a means to get over the person. Okay? Use it as a means to get over the person. Now, I'm a very loyal person and I am a confidence keeper, but don't double cross me. And don't put me in a situation where I have to break confidence and break my loyalty to you. Okay? If I am forced to break my loyalty to you because of your persistent action or inaction, after having addressed you on a certain issue, then I will not. But for the most part, I am a confidence keeper, and that's just the way I am. Okay, so this is a fourth protocol in relationships for the 21st century. Now, this sounds really like, it sounds really business-like. Like, do I really want to have relationships like this? But if we honestly look at the way in which relationships are disintegrating, even down to friendships, the way in which even friendships are disintegrating, we have to employ some kind of mechanism in which people can protect themselves. And we also live in a litigious society, where people just sue. So we have to employ measures in the 21st century in which we protect ourselves. And any person going into, you graduate college, you're going into the business field, we don't, even in the business field, even in today's economy, we don't even see the person coming out of college as a worker going into a profession. Now, today, we're looking at people as people are being looked at as brands. Is this a safe investment? Do I want to invest in this person and having, bringing this person into my company? You know, can I make the investment by putting this person into my company? It's no longer about me having the skills, providing my services and getting paid for it. It's like, okay, do I want to invest in this person coming into my company? That's just the way the world is headed. So as a person, as a brand, as an image going into the workplace, we have to become more diligent in the way we handle our personal relationships. And that's just the way things are. Like it or not. It's just the way things are, and it's just the way things are headed. Right? So we have to make decisions in which we can protect ourselves, better protect ourselves in the long run. And look at how many politicians have been burned. Look at how many superstars. I'll tell you something. Some are saying, okay, this is a little bit far-fetched, but let me tell you something. Do you know that the NBA has a rule for all their players? When their players are on the road away from home, they must, after having intercourse with anyone on the road, it is policy for that basketball player to take his condom with him. Do you know this? You can go look it up on Google. The NBA has an official policy where their athletes must make sure they take their condoms with them after they're having intercourse. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because too many players were being railroaded by stop and shop babies. They stopped, they shopped, they got broke. Okay? They stopped, they shopped, and went broke. So the NBA came up with a policy that says, and they taught their players. Why? Because the NBA, these leagues, these teams, invested long term in these players. And these players can be severely affected. Their mental health can be affected. Their physical health can be affected by making one wrong decision. And that can affect a team's ability to perform as a team. Now, the NBA is investing all this money in this athlete. The athlete has to do his part. So the NBA came up with a policy that all NBA players must take their condoms after they have any sort of sexual intercourse. Why? And somebody say, oh, that's kind of like off the topic. No, it's not. Because every relationship, A, must have boundaries, and B, must have insurance. Every relationship must have boundaries, and B, must have insurance. And when I say insurance, I don't mean like, you go out and you literally buy insurance. I mean protocols in which if there's any sort of risk that may be involved, there are successive steps that the person can take to mitigate those risks. And every relationship should be viewed as this. And a lot of people would benefit in marriages if they have these kinds of steps up front. We should be discussing these things more and more and more in the open and having these kinds of protocols up front. Some kind of marriage contract that doesn't just say you're man and wife and you cook, I work, you provide sex for me 7 days a week, give me babies, clean the house, I provide money. No, detailed contracts that can be renegotiated over time as relationships change, as attitudes change, as people change, etc. So reevaluating our relationships, right? Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so one of the measures that I included was having a professional confidant, right? Someone you can go, you pay. They may not be a actual, psychiatrist or psychologist, but people whose job it is to be a professional confidant, meaning I sit with you, I tell you my personal business, you keep your mouth shut, I pay you, and off we go. And you know that person is bound to keep your secret, right? Because every human being has secrets and every human being has to vent, and we have to vent somewhere. But we don't want to vent in such a way that we give information to those close to us that could be detrimental to us down the road. And I'm not talking about in terms of legalities. Again, I want to stress, I'm not talking about in terms of, oh my goodness, I committed a crime and I went to a confidant and that kind of thing. No, it's just certain private information that you have to get off your chest, and you want someone who would not divulge this information or sell this information to someone, to the highest bidder, because they want to be on the front page of the news. Or in today's society, where we have people who love to find out your personal business and blast it on social media because they want to be the first to be the one who's the first to put your information out there. Okay, so these are the ways in which we can protect ourselves. And don't think there aren't those social media news junkies who just want to find out the latest, juiciest gossip about you so they can blast you all over social media and say, I was the first to find out this information and I told everyone. Ways in which we can protect our personal secrets. Okay, so having a professional confidant, and my advice to you is, when you do, make sure there are no electronics, because if you tell the person you have electronics, the NSA will know. Okay, so if you're confiding, if you're not using a professional psychiatrist or psychologist, you're not using a confidant, and you're not going to use a non-disclosure agreement, one of the best things that you can use, one of the best techniques that you can use is, if you're just dealing with your friends, like a friend around you, you have something you need to get off your chest and you need to share it with someone, and you're unsure if this person is trustworthy, here's what you do. You lie. You lie. And now, I don't advocate lying, but you're going to use a lie as a tool. This is something that the CIA does. The CIA does this, the FBI does this. You're going to use a lie as a tool to see if this person can keep confidence. Now, I don't like liars, okay? No one does. But in this case, if you have sensitive information to get off your chest, and you really need to disclose this information to someone, then I subscribe that you lie. Okay, so what would you do is that you leak a lie. You tell this person a fabricated story, but what you do, you make it moderate to serious, something that could really affect your image. So you make it moderate to serious. Make sure you have someone who you backed up this information with, and they are in on it. Okay, these are precautionary measures, right? You record it, you timestamp it, okay, and you back up the info when you do it, okay? And you mark this down as a test. And the reason why you do this is because you want to know if this person is trustworthy. And in order to find out, if you can't afford a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you can't afford, you can't afford a professional confidant. You don't want to go into a non-disclosure agreement because it's too formal, or it may be too much of a giveaway. You lie. You lie. And you basically tell this person a fabricated story, but you back it up with someone else. You back it up with someone else, and you make sure you tell the someone else that you can confide in moderately that it's a lie. You want to test this person to see whether this person can keep confidence, or whether this person, if you're trusting this person's going to leak your personal information to God knows who, that can cause you irreparable harm. Okay? So again, so in short, this video is about fireproofing relationships in the 21st century. And some of the tools in which we employed today was setting boundaries. Okay, boundaries means you have to define every relationship in your life. It's just the way it is. People define every aspect of their lives except for their relationships. And our relationships can cause us the most joy or the most harm. To TMI or not to TMI. Too much information, and when is too much information not a good thing, right? So understanding TMI versus non-TMI. Okay, never sharing sensitive information with people who will never share sensitive information with you. Okay, and then the solutions: non-disclosure agreements, confiding in professionals who's bound and obligated by law to keep confidence, confiding in a person whose profession it is to be a confidant. Okay, there are people whose literal profession it is to be a confidant. Okay, let's see. And last but not least, sorry, you lie as a test. If none of these measures are good for you at employing, you lie as a test. You lie as a test, but you always timestamp it. You let someone else know that you trust moderately that you're doing this. You keep backup information, and you test to see if this person that you're confiding in is going to go share this so-called detrimental information about you everywhere. And that will let you know what kind of relationship you have and how you can move on from there. Okay, so guys, thank you for being with me on this next Renetta Jones Renetta's World. And I'll see you in about 30 minutes for my next video, which is undoing past mistakes. Okay, so exercises we're going to participate in to undo past mistakes and realigning your timeline. I love you. You're excellent. Go forward. Do something great. Peace out.